Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series where I take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. With this video, I'll be reviewing the class supplement of Gorgons and Oracles, designed by Jeff Linehan for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Manuel, Basil, Christopher, Dave, Starlover, Leanne, Gaston, and Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy, Numa, Marcos, Did, Vicente, Gilberto, Adam, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Ross, Limpy Spuds, Jerome, Fatboy619, Sclania, Nick, and Party McButterpants. Thank you all very much for your support. Now, I have not reviewed Mythic Odyssey of Theros. I believe it's just about the only 5e product I haven't reviewed at this point for no particular reason. I just didn't get around to it, I guess. I am well versed in Greek mythology, as probably most geeks and nerds are, because it's a cool time period, a different kind of fantasy realm, but that's somewhat fantasy and somewhat real. And I've been playing games like Immortals, Phoenix Rising, Hades, like just all about Greek mythology. And in fact, we just got 2 new puppies that are named Ares and Athena. So I'm a big fan of this theme. What this supplement does, it adds 12 new subclasses inspired by ancient Greece, 1 for each class, not including the new artificer. It takes a low magic approach, and there's so many different approaches you could make. You could base these classes off like the gods and goddesses, for example. In fact, you could probably easily slot at least one, major or minor deity into each subclass and come up with a cool theme. You could base them on heroes like Heracles and Perseus and Theseus and all those infamous figures. Or you could even do monsters, Cyclops and Medusas and Hydras, all the classic monsters which have now been folded into 5e, even though Harpies, they all came from that era. So there's a lot of cool ways you could combine all of those. And what this does is it takes a low magic approach, which means it's kind of a more realistic approach to like what would actual warriors be. It's like instead of doing instead of doing it like a video game, like Immortals, Phoenix Rising, or Hades, or even like a Wrath of the Titans, it's more like 300. It's more like just a more realistic look at the warriors there. Now, obviously, there's still like Sorcerer subclasses, Wizard subclasses, so magic still exists, but it doesn't quite take the more fantastical approach that I think I was hoping for. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the subclasses aren't good, but in this case, a lot of the subclasses just did not excite me. And I guess partly because they were just kind of boring, and it's a minimal approach. The product looks very, very good. It's got it's got that 5e design that looks like it's from an official product with the right font and typing and everything. And I really like the use of artwork here that is directly drawn from that era, just different pictures or different. In fact, there's this picture right here of Medusa. I know I've seen that exact picture before. All this artwork, it looks really, really good. It enhances the product in a really nice way, and it is, hammers home that theme that this is inspired by ancient Greece and Greek mythology. Unfortunately, the classes themselves didn't really excite me for the most part. It just takes that low magic kind of just warrior approach to a lot of, at least the martial classes. I did write down the few that I thought were really interesting, but just to kind of go over some of the more boring ones. Barbarian, Path of the Marathonian. It's just about like being able to move faster when you're raging. That's not terribly exciting. The Bard, College of the Homerids, which you would think, okay, a bard, that was a huge way of telling stories and everything. It basically just boils down to you can use your bardic inspiration as an area effect instead of a single target, which always felt dumb anyway. I don't know why bards have to target one person to inspire. I mean, it's not like they're whispering in that person's ear. They're playing songs or they're yelling a battle chant or something. You'd think they would get AoE stuff in general, and I'm pretty sure that used to be the case in previous editions of D&D where you could have some kind of area of effect and buff on everybody or something. But anyway, that just kind of balances it out with what I think bards should be. But as you can see here, like the entire subclass for some of these are like half a page long. Like there's just not a whole lot of content or interesting things going on. The cleric one, Poseidon, which is cool, and I started thinking, okay, now we're going to start drawing from some neat sources and be able to use those themes. But this one, it says based on Poseidon, all this shit has to do with like stone and earth, which is bizarre. Like, I guess you could argue that because I think technically like Zeus was god of the heavens and the sky, Poseidon was earth, but it always associated with water though, and then Hades was the underworld. And in this case, only the like level 17th ability where you can summon water elementals has to do with water. The rest are all like earth-based abilities, and one of them feels like it is rife to be arguing with the DM constantly. It says whenever it's a first level ability, whenever you are standing on stone or water, or whenever you are underground or aboard a vessel over sea or river, you gain an AC bonus equal to your wisdom modifier. You would pretty much get that all the time then, you know, assuming you're not on a spaceship or something. Like, you would am I not on stone? Like, you would just always get that AC bonus. So you could almost just make it like, just give them a flat AC bonus at that point. You can use your Channel Divinity to make kind of an earthquake around you. None of it feels like Poseidon-y though. It's just, it's weird. I don't know. I guess technically Poseidon is associated with the earth, but I feel like everybody associates Poseidon with the classic god of the sea. The Druid is the first one that starts getting really interesting. You're the Circle of the Spheres. You can use a wild shape to turn into this like beam of light. So it's an entirely different astral form, which unfortunately what Tasha's called, I think, one of the monk subclasses, but I believe this was designed before Tasha's. And you get these spheres that rotate around you. You can't make physical attacks. You get a number of celestial orbs, what they're called, equal to your proficiency bonus, which I like that a lot of these classes scale off proficiency bonus. And then you can expel them to deal, 1d10 fire damage, and then that scales up as you level. It sounds like it's pretty close to using, basically gaining fire bolts. And you just gain a ranged spell attack. So you basically turn into like a wizard whenever you go into wild shape form. But I like at least it looks cool. Like you turn to this like pillar of energy light with like orbs around you that you can fling at somebody. Like that just feels pretty nifty. And then at 6th level, this is insane. A number of times per day equal to your wisdom modifier, you can use your move action as though you were casting the spell Dimension Door. You can just teleport as part of your move. Now granted, you're limited to your wisdom modifier, but that is your main modifier that you're using. You've probably got a +3, +4, +5, depending on where your level sits. Being able to move as though you had Dimension Door, granted once per day, but still, that's incredibly powerful. That's very powerful. 14th level, you can use Meteor Swarm once per day, and at 10th level, you can expend one of your Celestial Orbs to gain everybody advantage on a skill check or saving throw. So it does something that I like that subclasses do, which is they front load a cool ability, and then later level ups add and expand and enhance that ability. That's the only one that really does a good job of doing that, and maybe the Wizard one does that too. There are some classes that do some fun things that need to be maybe rebalanced, such as the Ranger has a really cool Imbue Arrow ability, this is something that just baseline Rangers should be able to do, frankly, but whatever. For some reason, it's tied to the 8 spell schools of wizards, even though I don't know what a Ranger has to do with a wizard, but as an action, you can imbue your arrows with an ability, and there are 8 of these different abilities to coincide with all the different wizard schools, including Conjuration, which lets you roll 2 additional damage dice whenever you hit somebody with an arrow. That's better than a crit. You just gave yourself, like, I'm going to do, like, double crit every time I hit. That's incredibly powerful, and it lasts until the end of the combat. Now, it mentions the fact that you have to use an action to do it, but it doesn't say how long it lasts, and you know the first thing a player is going to want to do is, well, can I just turn this on and then it'll last until the next combat encounter? Is that how it's supposed to work? I don't know. There needs to be another line in there that says, you know, you can turn this on, but it lasts for like a minute or something. So maybe you can turn it on right before a fight, because using up an action is a big deal. But the effects are very cool. Like Necromancy lets you sap hit points. Abjuration gives you a temporary AC bonus. They all have, you know, to do with their divination. You can like learn about the enemy that you just shot. It's a neat idea, but it's not till 11th level, and that feels like a cool class ability. Instead, at 3rd level, you just gain bonuses against certain kinds of enemies, which just, again, is like a baseline Ranger ability. I feel like this entire concept needed to be redesigned with the Imbue Arrow as your 3rd level ability, and instead of being able to just choose one of these 8 every time you do it, instead do like, you know, battle moves or something where you can only pick so many, and then later on as you take more levels in the class, you gain access to more options to use this Imbue Arrow ability. I would build the class around that. The other one that's an example of one that has a good idea that needed to be perhaps given another edit or rebalance is the Sorcerer, which is based on Morpheus, which is the god of dreams, I think. And at first level, you're better at casting Sleep. You can cast it an augmented version a number of times equal to your charisma modifier. Instead of doing the d8, so a 5d8 when you normally cast Sleep, and then it's that many hit points goes to sleep, you can do a 5d12, and you gain 2d12 for each spell slot above first level. So you're just way better at casting Sleep, which sounds awesome. And the way I would have liked to do it is to have all the other abilities enhance the fact that you're good at putting people to sleep, and then maybe you can do things to enemies while they're sleeping. Like you can, paralyze them or make them suffer nightmares or charm them into waking up and they're dominated. All of those things have been really cool. The only thing that does that is not until 14th level, where you can cast Mass Suggestion, and if they are already asleep, then they automatically fail the save, I believe. Some creature affected by the spell automatically. Yeah. So that's up to 14th level. So I like the idea of being the enhanced sleep user and that being your whole shtick, but then every single thing after that should have been a way to like further manipulate enemies like once they're asleep. Like that should be your main way of playing this class, and it doesn't quite hit that. Let's see. The fighter is kind of boring, but also kind of works for me. The whole thing is Phalanx, which is the classic like hoplite or dude with the spear and the shield maneuver, and in this case you are very defensive. You can wield a glaive, halberd, or pike in one hand and a shield in the other, and you gain the shield mastery feat automatically, but you cannot take pole mastery or polearm mastery. And the reason you can't is because it kind of gives you a slight version of polearm mastery, in that if a party member adjacent to you is attacked, then you can take an attack of opportunity to that enemy. You get various AC bonuses, and party members get AC bonuses if they're next to you. It's not a whole lot of like active fun stuff to do, but it feels very thematic with tanking a very tanky defensive warrior. The only thing I really don't like is that at 10th level, your only ability is that you don't have to use one of those weapons, which that annoys me for two reasons. One, that's a dumb 10th level ability, and two, you've just built your entire class concept and probably your part of your identity around wielding the classic spear-like weapon and shield, and all of a sudden at 10th level, you just don't have to do that anymore. Like, that feels very odd to me. I would have, again, rather married the character concept to that one idea and then had it be expanded from there. But I still like the idea of just this tanky, and then that one feels like an appropriate low magic, inspired by this classic, Greek warrior concept that works. I just wish so many of them weren't just that idea. Like the monk is just, you're kind of a pugilist, you're just better at fighting, you can do kind of like bleed damage or a few extra attacks. At least that one requires an opposed dexterity. First of all, you have to hit them with an unarmed strike, then you have to make an opposed dexterity skill check, and then you can impose one of these abilities, which is like disadvantage or something. But you can only do it each enemy can only suffer it one round and then become immune to that effect for the rest of the combat encounter. It's a lot of restrictions and trouble just to get this off, while meanwhile the fucking astral form druid is just teleporting everywhere and blasting people with orbs. Like, yikes. Paladin is real boring. His only cool thing you get until 20th level, you gain a shield that's got all these different abilities. Again, that would have been really cool if this magic shield was like your 3rd level ability, but it only did like, I don't know, the shield gives you an AC bonus equal to your charisma modifier and maybe like one active ability you can do, and then have it be enhanced as you go, to where the higher level ability is that classic, like you gain Medusa on your shield and she can turn people to stone with some kind of cool, check or limitation there. That would have been a lot more interesting instead of a bunch of weird. God, the 15th level one is you gain temporary hit points equal to your spell casting modifier, which a paladin spell. So if I'm understanding that correctly, a paladin spell casting modifier is charisma, and what's your best? What is it going to be? A +3, maybe a +4 if you're a really spellcastery paladin. So you gain 3 or 4 hit points, a number of times equal to day to your proficiency modifier bonus at 15th level. That's like 3 or 4 hit. That's nothing. Am I misunderstanding what that is? Like that, maybe that could have been a 3rd level ability to go along with everything else, and probably needed to scale up a little bit somehow, but that's at 15th, that's just nothing. That's not going to do anything. It's not very exciting whatsoever. The Rogue has one of the few cool ideas because you gain deed points, which is a neat concept because you're an Argonaut and you're a classic, adventuring hero, Jason the Argonauts. And these are kind of like battle maneuvers where you can expend a deed. You have to perform a acrobatics, deception, or performance check, which is interesting. And then you can either use your cunning action again. You can use deception. Oh, I guess it depends on what you're doing. So if you use acrobatic, you can use cunning action an extra time. If you use deception, you can feint an attack to push an enemy. It says 1 square. You should always say 5 feet, not 1 square. Or you can use performance to taunt an enemy within 25 feet, and another ally gets to use an attack of opportunity. That's just kind of neat. You can do extra stuff, or you can burn it like a divine smite. Not quite as powerful, but I believe it's a bonus action to be able to just deal more damage when you attack. As you know, rogues just want to deal that much more damage, I guess. But then I like that this does a good job. It front loads the ability, which is the deed system, and then as you take more levels in the class, you gain. It enhances the deed system. So at 9th level, you gain a deed point whenever you successfully evade or uncanny dodge. And at 13th level, you can spend deed points to add sneak attack just after a stealth check. At 17th level, you can use deed points to perform the deft dance, which is using your deed to do something without rolling opposed skill checks. So you can basically just do it. So that's again a really great way of taking a unique character concept, which is deeds or deft dance, I guess it's called, and enhancing that as you level up. So I like the rogue. I like the druid, although the druid is just OP. Come on, that's ridiculous. I like the fighter, despite it is being mundane, but at least that is a classic like Greek fighter unit, and I feel like the abilities use it pretty well. It's all about like armor class and having adjacent allies next to you and wielding those weapons. I think that one works pretty well. And the rogue works pretty well. The sorcerer and ranger both needed more work. I think there's some good ideas in there, but they needed to be reworked to basically focus on their class concepts and the ideas that they were introducing. The warlock's super boring. The furies you're a patron of is just not at all. By the way, nudity here. I don't know. I guess I should have mentioned content warning. Ancient Greek stuff is, they had no such qualms about prudishness. And the warlock just doesn't do anything very exciting. You can take like reactions to do attacks, and just it's not interesting. The wizard, the Flames of Prometheus, is interesting. You can cast, you can basically create your own little spell storing devices. This one actually is a really good job of taking the entire myth of Prometheus, which is the I don't know if they were a god or a person, but they gifted mankind with fire, and then they were chained to a rock. Eagle eats out the liver. Real bad deal for Prometheus. One of the narrators of Immortals Phoenix Rising, though, real funny guy. You can create these Flames of Prometheus, which are these little like palm-sized objects, magical objects, a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You can store spells in there. They can't ever be higher level spells, but they can just be whatever spell. And it doesn't use up a spell slot when you do that. So you just create these bonus spells, and you can give them to other people, and they can cast the spells using your spellcasting abilities, which is a cool way of reflecting the story about how Prometheus gave mankind the fire, like how to make fire. So I thought that was actually really cool. And it does a good job of enhancing and expanding on those Flames of Prometheus. So for 6th level, you can use a bonus action to use a fire that was given to an ally. And if you do that, you can actually expend spell slots to cast it at a higher level if you wanted to. And at 14th level, you can expend spell slots to store any spells of that level, even if you have yet to learn or encounter it, which should excite any wizard, the fact that you can actually expand your spell repertoire even more. So thumbs up to the druid, the fighter, the rogue, and the wizard. And thumbs medium to the ranger and sorcerer. I thought they had some good ideas in there, but they really needed to be rebalanced and reworked to where they focused on their good ideas and just enhanced them a little better. And then honestly, thumbs down to barbarian, bard, cleric, monk, paladin, and warlock. So the ratio here is not great. Even if you're looking at the thumbs mediums as a thumbs up, that's still a 50% ratio that I was personally excited about. So it's disappointing because there's so many good, fun, interesting opportunities to draw from ancient Greece. There's so many different elements. I'm rattled off like the monsters and the gods and the heroes, all these things. And instead, it kind of takes a little bit of that. Like the Furies is technically, I guess, a monster or monsters. The first boss of the Hades run is the Furies that you can fight. But it just doesn't do anything terribly interesting. And I get that it's getting harder and harder as we get further and further along in 5e to make more interesting classes that have not already been done or new systems. But I'm continually impressed by those that do offer some neat ideas, and there are some good ideas in here. But the overall ratio to ones that I'm excited about versus ones that I think are kind of boring and meh is not great. All right, let's go over my pros and cons for Gorgons and Oracles. Pro, great use of classic art and paintings from the ancient era. It's a really good looking product. I have no complaints with the layout, the presentation, despite it being it's a dozen pages. You know, it just have the subclasses, and honestly, most of the subclasses are pretty minimal with the content, but the artwork really enhances things a lot. Every single page has just awesome classic art sculpture stuff in it. It looks really nice. Pros, several standout new class features and abilities, like the Rogue Argonaut's Deeds. There are some good systems here. The Wizard's Flames of Prometheus, I mentioned, that are the standout features. Unfortunately, those are not as numerous as the meh subclasses, which is a con. Most of the subclasses are boring. Sorry, I just didn't find them very interesting, and just you can tell kind of by the way that you can fit the entire subclass on like half a page and a few paragraphs doesn't really speak well either. And the other con is, and partly why it's so short, is there's a bare minimum of content, and especially when you get things like Xanathars did a good job with this, where it added more flavor tables. It was like, you know, for the Phalanx to be like, hey, what kind of shields do you have? Or for the Argonaut to be like, hey, these are the kind of deeds that you would talk about. You know, here's a D6 table. You know, there's things that you can do that don't have anything to do with the mechanical benefits of the class, but add the flavor and enhance the ideas of the class and give the player more, you know, something to draw motivation from and build those character concepts around. And this doesn't have any of that. It's just bare minimum. Here's the mechanics at each level. So that is also disappointing. Final verdict, Gorgons and Oracles takes a low magic, more realistic approach to ancient Greek subclasses, resulting in mostly lackluster new options. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. And you can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.